That, Mr. Cousins.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. As you may recall, we talked a bit about the inconsistencies between the livestock and farm animals definitions. Over a few months ago, we talked about it quite a few times over the previous few months before that. There was an incident where I had given somebody advice based on the zoning definitions. They acquired a couple of farm animals that required over an acre based on the Chapter 8 animals definition. We were asked to clean up those definitions, so an interpretation of one couldn't lead to a violation of the other. We've done that. We've worked through the planning board process, and what staff and the planning board are suggesting is a change to the definition of livestock that takes away the distinction that they must be raised for the production of income in order to be livestock. So before, if you had a cow and it was not for the production of income, it was not livestock. If you had a cow and it was for the production of income, it was livestock. Takes away that distinction of having to be for income to be considered a livestock animal, and it changes the definition of farm, animal to farm, livestock to use a consistent term, and references the 1 acre minimum that we've always had in Chapter 8, Chapter 60 standard. So we're not proposing any changes to Chapter 8. We're just proposing that we make Chapter 60 consistent with what's been in place in Chapter 8. Planning Board recommended this unanimously, and we're looking for you to allow us to schedule it for a public hearing in first reading.
Questions? Councilor Lee, then Councilor Burns.
The objective was to make Chapter 8 and Chapter 60 harmonious,
Harmonious without losing the 1 acre minimum that existed in Chapter 8.
which is my second question. They chose to go this direction rather than the other direction so that they could maintain the 1 acre limit?
That's correct.
Okay.
Councilor Burns.
So in the first section where it's may not be limited to, and that enumerates a set of animals that may not be limited to, is that to get to like the similar sized part of the subsequent section, or I'm just?
If there was a water buffalo or something that we haven't thought of as being livestock that's a consistent size and similar impact, then yeah, I think it could be interpreted to fall into that category.
Sure.
What, dwarf buffaloes? Not too soon? Okay. Any other questions? All right, so we'll, in terms of timing, this public hearing, November 6th meeting, is that the plan?
As long as we can make the public notice, I think we can for the November 6th meeting.
Okay.
If we couldn't, then we could do the first reading November 6th and the public hearing on the second reading.
As I mentioned to the acting city manager, welcome. Just items like this that we know are at near the end of the term for this council, wanting to be mindful of when we can, that hard break on some things that need this council's action, whether our last meeting is at the end of November or the first meeting in December. So, but good.
Should have time to make the public hearing for that November 6th meeting.
Okay, good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item, with respect to Norway Savings Bank Arena concessions. Mr. Paquin, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you know, we have recently closed a purchase of our concessions and, food and beverage services at the Norway Savings Bank Arena. We have proposed several different options, one, running internally, two, speaking with local businesses and other organizations to see if there is any interest in leasing that space again. With a lease model, there are some issues that we would need to clean up with some contractual language and in terms of events and operations to allow us flexibility to bring in certain events. Essentially, what we are looking for today, after speaking with multiple businesses, seeing a lack of interest in actually leasing that facility or the food and beverage services, is guidance from the council on what we'd like to see done. Either one, take over the concessions, operate them as a city and as a facility, or if we'd like to submit an RFP, that we'd have to essentially remodel from the previous one that was done when the arena opened, to actually garner any interest from outside businesses.
A couple of things, and thank you. I think there's been some misconception about from the public as to our move to buy the equipment and end that contract so we could figure out what we're doing, that there's been no commitment of the city to the next step. It was just a commitment to end that contractual relationship. So appreciate you coming forward. Have we looked at a hybrid model where we may have beefed up vending options and partnering with a canteen or another vendor? So when the youth hockey and other games that may not draw major traffic to the upstairs dining facility, whether additional higher end vending or more options for vending were put on the table?
We have not looked at any additional options for vending at this point. However, we do have a contract in place with Canteen to actually service our food vending options, which are located on both rinks. And that is something that we could definitely explore.
And I know anyone who's gone to, whether it's Fenway or other size venues, everything from, hot dogs down to coffee and hot chocolate. So technology for vending is far advanced. And if the ability of staff to deploy to fill those machines and leave sort of the vending machines to take care of that for the other events that could generate revenue where you can't justify paying full-time staff with benefits, that's my concern, knowing what it costs in food service right now to attract and retain workers, and knowing that if we bring those folks on, we're likely going to bring them on under our union contract, and the benefits and carrying costs of employees is very expensive, let alone doing that in the food service business. So I just want to put out there, I support issuing the RFP. It doesn't hurt to issue it, but I think taking a look at some other strategic uses of vending and how that might play out, I think could help generate cash flow without some of the carrying costs. And with that, I'll see if there are other counselors with thoughts or comments on direction here. Councilor Burns?
So in terms of the current lack of interest, do you ascribe that to anything specific, or have you gotten any feedback?
Realistically, it hasn't gone very further than this is what we have, this is what we see the potential as, would you have interest? I think there are some hurdles there that are required for the facility and the city for a lessee to come in and operate properly. Whether or not those can be overcome, I think there is a proper way to go about it, and I think that they can be, but it's going to take a very strong business model to do so from an outside perspective.
And this is clerical, but under section 7N with termination, we have a former city manager listed.
Yeah, this was the previous pro forma, the previous RFP that was utilized. I essentially wanted to include this to show what had been done in the past. This would be gone through, remodeled, and then put back out.
Excellent.
I'm wondering, in the interim, what's going to happen while the RFP is out there and we have needs. It's going to be vending?
For the current moment being, yes. We are working with the city clerk's office, planning and permitting, to see if there are some additional options that we could do from a food service perspective without getting too heavily involved with it from a staff point. See if there is some other options, whether it be through volunteer organization staffing and models along those lines to get some food service in there. So that way we're not missing out on opportunities and having potential renters and visitors go without food items.
Jason, I want to say thank you to you. Ever since you've come involved with this operation, at least in the leaving of the prior manager, I think that you've done a really wonderful job. I'm remiss to see how, I don't know, how this is coming to us as city councilors. To me, this is really just a management function. All of these conversations about what we do, we've already taken all the necessary votes in a prior city council about what's going to operate here and how it's going to work. And I appreciate the updates, but to a certain extent, I feel like if an RFP needs to go out, let it go out. It doesn't have to come back to us all the time. You guys should feel empowered. You know, like I said, you've done a very good job in trying to find solutions to the problems that we've dealt with here. And I think you've done a great job on a management perspective. You know, let staff run with this. I don't feel like it's up to this city council or the next to really make these determinations. We've assumed responsibilities as a city from a policy perspective for running this facility, and I'm struggling to understand why we're involved in these sort of decision-making.
So just to clarify, when the council voted to buy out that contract with the previous vendor, there were conversations in executive session that were two tracks. It was buying this out and then a pivot to city run. And the council gave staff direction, and it was discussed a little bit publicly that we didn't want to marry the two together. That if we're going to buy this out, let's buy that out, and then let's determine what our policy direction is for concessions. And that question being, do we privatize it and try to get a private operator there, or do we create a new set of city employees that would deliver it publicly? So I think that's what Jason's coming forward is saying. He's not finding any bites yet and trying to get some direction. Do you want to see staff propose a staffed model, or do you want to see this RFP issued?
I guess what I'm saying in response to that, Mr. Mayor, is that this is, in my opinion, an operational matter. And although I appreciate the reporting back and it's worth our while to discuss it, just in my perspective, looking at it, it's an operational matter, and let city staff do what they need to do to make sure that it's successful for the citizens of Auburn.
Except the city budget as approved does not fund additional staff positions. And if the council were to support staff hiring additional people, there would have to be an additional vote for the creation of new positions that we would have to find a way to fund.
But we're not doing that today or in this next 2 months, right?
This is the question before us, is to get a direction of whether we want to see staff create a unit of Norway Savings that staffs concessions, where people would report to Jason, and they would be the ones serving the hot dogs, making the coffee and hot cocoa, selling the bags of chips, or whether you want to issue an RFP and have him simply manage a contractor who hires all those people, not as city employees. Two very different models of running a concession.
But we haven't appropriated those funds in the last budget cycle.
Correct.
Is there a proposal that we might do that, or a mechanism by which we?
There are mechanisms whereby we probably could, but that's the conversation we're having tonight. Yeah.
Jason's recommendation to us, if I understand it, is to issue the RFP rather than take that.
I would suggest issuing the RFP.
And just to clarify, you know, in looking at this, it looks like the pro forma that you laid out, we're not really seeing a path toward breaking even on this. If we were to try to do this internally, is that?
If we were to track this internally, from what I've been able to come up with as the numbers on this, I see us basically hitting a break-even point off of the purchase price in about 2.5 years, 2 years. From that point forward, we would be turning a profit for the facility.
So in the question between RFP and internalizing this within the city, you've stated that your preference would be for an RFP. Again, what factors are you weighing when making that determination?
Essentially, I want to make sure that we're making the best possible decision for the facility and for the city. I don't want us to overstretch staff and overstretch staff time for something if we can find a contractor that's willing to work with us and do a job that could potentially be done better than what we can do in-house.
Do we require our contractors in terms of compensation levels or the employee contracts that are deployed for those private contractors to be commensurate in any way with what city staff will be paid? Is this a situation where some of the cost savings we would see are due to the contractor employing non-union labor, for example?
They wouldn't have to basically employ union employees per se, but we do set guidelines on what they have to do. For instance, you can't pay staff members under the table, you have to pay taxes, you have to pay workers' compensation, and essentially follow those legal guidelines.
Thank you.
Just to follow up, I mean, your recommendation is to send an RFP. How long would the RFP be? I saw that there's a sample here from the 2013 year. How long is the process for the RFP versus when the demands for these services? Are we looking at an interim period where the city is providing the services? What's the plan?
We may look at that. Essentially, I'd have to talk with city management to determine exactly how long we'd want that RFP out. In the meantime, like I've been discussing, we've been looking at other organizations such as St. Dominic's Academy, Everett Little High School, finding out if there's a way for us to work with those groups, including the Maine Gladiators, to basically bring them in and have them staff and operate that. We may incur some costs in the form of food licensing, so that way we can operate legally. But that's essentially what we're looking at now, just to have that service in place.
When would you like to have this contract in place?
I would like to have it in place no later than December 1.
Thank you.
So consensus support to have the RFP approach for private services and just look for a report back on outcomes at this point?
My preference would be using internal staff, but it seems that that's not the consensus of the council.
Sounds good. You got what you need?
Yes, sir. Thank you all very much.
Appreciate it, Jason. Next item on the agenda is an executive session to discuss an economic development matter. I would entertain a motion by the council.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss an economic development matter pursuant to Title I MRSA 4056C.
Second the motion.
Motion by Councilor Pross, second by Councilor Young. Those in favor of the motion? Those opposed? Carries 601. Councilor Titus is excused for the workshop. We will return.
Here in Auburn, we have the conditions. Welcome to the City of Auburn, where we uphold the outstanding quality of life Maine is best known for.
He became governor of Maine in 1975 and remained governor until 1979. Some of you may remember when the falls were known as the Lewiston Falls. If you're a local history buff, you would know that way back when, they were known as 20 Mile Falls. Whatever you call them, these falls have seen Lewiston and Auburn come to existence and have stood by them through the test of time. The falls have been a dependable sentinel between Lewiston and Auburn, creating the reason for the Twin Cities' existence, and for that matter, Androscoggin County exists because of the falls.
Way back in the late 1830s, at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, some financiers from Boston came to Lewiston, Auburn, or actually they came upriver from on the Androscoggin, and discovered that the upper falls, or 20 Mile Falls, if you will, on the Androscoggin would be a great place to build hydromechanical powered mills, or because then it was hydromechanical power. Electricity was, hadn't really been discovered to be useful yet. They started building canals. The Irish had the potato famine in the 1840s. Came over here, built the canals with manual labor, pick and shovel, bucket and wheelbarrow, out of bedrock. They did have blasting, but the dynamite had not yet been invented. It was a very dangerous work, very difficult work. The Irish were looked down upon, not in small part because they were Roman Catholic. I have yet to see any evidence, this is a theory of mine, I've yet to see any evidence that they actually used animals in the dangerous parts of digging a canal. An animal was an investment. You got injured or killed, you were out money. An Irishman got injured or killed, just hired another Irishman. That gives you some idea of how they were treated. It's pretty rough.
You can get a good, quick look at Great Falls from the Lewiston side. Just pull into Lewiston's Veteran Park. From there, you can get a good close-up look of the old Libby Mill and Cohen Mill buildings and the falls. If you have a little bit more time for a little hike and exploring, cross the bridge and take a right, find a place to park in one of the municipal parking lots, and head out on foot to the river's direction. When you get to the river, you will be able to see across to where you were in Lewiston's Veterans Park. From there, just follow the walkway up the
Yeah.
Still one short.
I'll declare us out of executive session. There was a subsequent executive session with respect to contemplated litigation. I would entertain a motion from the council.
Mr. Mayor.
Moved.
Oh, I move we enter executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA Section 4056E for contemplated litigation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion from Councilor Burns and a second from Councilor Young. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, a show of hands. Those opposed, those abstaining.
As this involves my firm, I'm abstaining.
Thank you for your declaration. We will be in executive session. Good evening. Call to order this meeting of the Auburn City Council for October 16, 2017. If you'd all please join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There were two items in the workshop that the council did not address. Neither require action, so they'll be moved to the end of this evening's meeting and will be tended to after the second open session. Is that Irish? Is that Irish music? Is it for me? All right. We have one consent item. I would entertain a motion by the council.
So moved.
Motion from Councilor Titus, second from Councilor Walker. Those in favor, show of hands. Those opposed, carry 7-0. We have the minutes from October 2nd. Have a motion?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion from Councilor Burns, second from Councilor Titus. Is there any discussion? Those in favor, show of hands. Those opposed, carries 7-0. Under communications and presentations, again this year, the City of Auburn was contacted for a proclamation for Extra Mile Day for us to join hundreds of other communities across the country in recognizing folks that go above and beyond in their community work and in their jobs and in giving back here in Auburn. So we have some folks here that I'd like to invite to the front row, I think. James and Debbie Pear. Is Kathy Shaw here? Kathy, come on up. And Jason Paquin, has he disappeared yet? So as I have done in years past, when our esteemed clerk asked if I wish to issue this proclamation, I respond back to her and our city manager saying I'd love to. Let's poll staff to find out folks that they interact with that they believe warrant recognition. So I'm going to read, and hopefully none of you blush, what we heard from folks that believed you folks go the extra mile for James and Debbie. Upon hearing of needy immigrant families, they took it upon themselves to assist in any way they can. They have donated to one family of 6, 2 parents and 4 children, including a 2-year-old son, an entire bedroom set, a kitchen table set, including delivery and setup in their house, in bags of clothes, kitchen items, donated money to help pay for the mandatory pictures for their employment cards for 6 of them, which the government does not provide. A lot of people would have disregarded their need and left it up to the nonprofits in the city to attend to these new Mainers, but James and Debbie went above and beyond. So for that, and on behalf of the city, I want to thank both of you for going the extra mile in the city of Auburn. Kathy Shaw, a local business owner, local farmer, leader of the United New Auburn Association, the Auburn Farmers Market Coordinator, is the perfect person for this award. She's always filling her plate with various volunteer activities and programs with a genuine notion of trying to help make this community a better place to live. Kathy, congratulations. Mr. Paquin was also nominated. Jason is the GM of the Norway Savings Bank Arena. The amount of time and detail Jason puts into operating the state's only twin-sheet ice rink is second to none. He takes great pride in providing a quality product, whether it be for an introductory Learn to Skate program or to an established adult hockey program. Jason's always going the extra mile to please all of his customers, and the relationships he has built is proof of that. He cannot go anywhere within the building or around the community where he doesn't stop and talk to people he knows. Jason is a great City of Auburn representative for this award. So congratulations, Jason. We spend countless hours on Monday evenings here, sort of trudging through the necessary mechanics of being the elected officials here for the city of Auburn, but it's always a great pleasure of mine when we can bring in folks who are actually defining what it means to build community. So I want to thank all of you for what you do, and appreciative of city staff for sharing your stories with us so we could let folks at home and folks here tonight know about it. So thank you.
Thank you.
There was a subsequent communication that was included. There is not a source, though I'm assuming that the city staff have provided that for us. Be making the police department has shared this note with us. All right. Open session. We are at the first open session of the evening. If anyone here would like to speak to the council about anything relating to city business that is not on the agenda, I will open the floor to you. Okay, I will close the open session. We have a long list of new business here, no unfinished business. I would entertain a motion on new business item 1.
Move to approve the liquor license for AMDAG LLC, DBA Christie's Cafe.
Second.
By Councilor Lee and a second by Councilor Walker. Is there any discussion? Is the business owner here this evening? No, okay. Not a requirement that I would ask. Bring it back to the council.
Does the police department have anything you would like to add?
Chief looks all set. Is there any public comment? Okay, with that, I will ask the council by a vote by a show of hands. Those in favor of the order? Those opposed? Carries 7-0. Thank you. Item 2, to entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move the council adopts Order 93-10162017, approving the Staying Home Rental Assistance Program guidelines.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Burns, second by Councilor Walker. Is there any council discussion? Any comments from the public? Back to the council. Those in favor, show of hands. Those opposed, carries 7-0. Thank you. Item 3. Entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we authorize the city manager to execute the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Auburn and the Maine Association of Police Command Unit covering 7/1/2017 through 6/30/2020.
Second.
A motion from Councilor Stone and a second from Councilor Walker. Do I have any discussion from the council? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. Those in favor, a show of hands. Those opposed, carries 7-0. Item 4 is an ordinance, and this will be a public hearing and first reading. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt ordinance amending Chapter 24, Article 2, Division 1, Section 2423 of the General Assistance Ordinance Annual Adjustment for Maximum Benefits, Appendages A, B, C, and D, effective 10/1/2017 to 9/30/2018. Public hearing and first reading.
Second.
A motion from Councilor Titus and a second from Councilor Stone for ordinance 11-101-62017. I will open the first reading. Seeing no public comment, I will close the hearing and turn to the council. Is there any council debate?
I'll just remind councilors that this is prescribed by state law, and I'd encourage folks to support it.
I'll ask the clerk for a roll call, please.
Councilor Young?
Yes.
Councilor Pross?
Yes.
Councilor Stone?
Yes.
Councilor Titus?
Yes.
Councilor Lee?
Yes.
Councilor Walker?
Yes.
Councilor Burns?
Yes.
Carries 7-0. Thank you, council. Item 5.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that the council adopt ordinance 12-101-62017.
I'll second that.
Motion from Councilor Pross and a second from Councilor Stone for ordinance 12-10162017. These are further changes to general assistance as required by state law. I will open the public hearing. Seeing no comments, I will close the public hearing and bring it to the council. Any debate from the council? Seeing none, I will ask the clerk for a roll call, please.
Counselor Young?
Yes.
Counselor Pross?
Yes.
Counselor Stone?
Yes.
Counselor Titus?
Yes.
Counselor Lee?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Burns?
Yes.
Carries 7-0. Both of those will appear on the next meeting agenda for their second and final reading. Item 6. Entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt Order 95-101-62017, authorizing staff to proceed with the discontinuance of a section of Troy Street right-of-way.
Second.
Motion from Councilor Titus, second from Councilor Walker for Order 95-10162017. I will open the floor for any public comment. I will bring it back to the council. Council debate. Councilor Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just inquire from staff whether or not we have received any statements from the public prior to the meeting that we either want to read into the record, or if there has been any response from the notice that was sent out.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. What we're looking at now is that we've been continuing the Troy Street project, and in the purchase and sale agreement, we had a component in there for the Troy Street right-of-way. What we're looking for now is just approval to move forward, to look at the estimated potential damages to adjacent property owners, and to start the process on this to get the input.
Council debate. Councilor Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question. I know there was a discrepancy in the drawings between the actual buy-sell agreement and what we were seeing for the proposal. Do you know if that was corrected in the agreement?
I think we're still, and Doug's not here tonight, he couldn't make it, but we're still working with public services and the area of the right-of-way that we want to discontinue, and what we want to keep with one of the end property owners. So I don't think we've come to a complete conclusion of exactly where we want to go with that road. That's what we've been working on.
So I'm going to follow up and clarify, and maybe I'll look to the city manager. When this was workshopped, council was told that there was an error found in the final exhibit, that not the entirety of Troy Street was going to be abandoned, and that a corrected version was signed as part of executing that agreement, and that that updated version would appear in tonight's council packet. I believe that's what Councilor Titus was getting at.
Yes.
And it doesn't appear that it was updated in our packet.
Yeah, I think that what Doug put in his packet, that after talking to the landowner on the end and public services, that we may want to look at discontinuing the whole road and not just a portion of the road to maintenance.
So, but it's two different points. The point that was made by Doug Green at the last meeting was that the agreement with the developer, the final executed agreement, was not for the full discontinuation of Troy Street, that it was simply to the end of that property line, and that was the final document that was executed for the purchase and sale, and that final version would be provided to us. So either that wasn't the case and we did execute a commitment to sell all of Troy Street, or we don't have that version in front of us.
I would say you don't have that version in front of you. I apologize for that. What you have in front of you is what we're looking at to recommend to discontinue the whole street, which wouldn't be all turned over to that property, whatever's in that purchase and sale. We can certainly provide that at the next meeting.
Well,
I guess the workshop discussion was not for the abandonment of the entire street. So what you're saying now is staff are recommending the full abandonment.
What we're recommending at this point in time till we look at the damages is that it looks like with public services that we'd probably go forward to recommending discontinuing the whole length of the street, just not stopping at the end. That may be an issue with maintenance.
Mr. Mayor. Let me,
Hold on, Counselor Lee.
Makes me incredibly curious as to why we would be taking action if we don't know what that final action is going to be. And with that, I'd move to table this until October 16th.
Second.
Motion from Counselor Lee and a second from Counselor Burns.
Sorry, it is October 16th. What? November 6th would be the next one.
Counselor Burns, take your second.
Yes, please.
Okay, there is no debate on the tabling motion. This would simply move the discussion and action on this item to November 6th. Those in favor, a show of hands. Those opposed, it carries 6-1. Will appear on November 6th. Next item, item 7, Order 96. I would entertain a motion.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Can we move ahead with this item, having tabled the previous item? Then I move we adopt Order 96-1016217, committing home funds for the Troy Street project.
A motion from Counselor Burns and a second from Counselor Pross for Order 96-1016217, which is authorizing $110,000 in home funds to be reserved for the Troy Street Workforce Housing Project. I will open the floor for any public comment. Seeing none, I will bring it back to the council. Any council debate on the order? Counselor Titus.
yes, thank you. It is my feeling that considering we haven't gotten an agreement on Troy Street, which is kind of pivotal to this whole thing, I think that this also should be tabled. And I make a motion that we table this till the next meeting.
Second.
A motion from Counselor Titus and a second from Counselor Lee to table Order 96. There's no debate on a tabling motion. Those in favor, a show of hands. Those opposed, carries 4-3. We tabled. Item 8.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt Order 97-1016217, authorizing the city manager to sign a memorandum of understanding between the City of Auburn and the Auburn Business Development Corporation.
Second.
A motion from Counselor Titus and a second from Counselor Burns for Order 97-1016217. Do staff have a presentation to provide the public on this item? Is there a staff presentation on Order 97? I believe the council had requested that before action would be taken on this item, that there would be a briefing presentation. If that's not prepared, I would ask that we table this to the November 6th meeting to make time for that presentation to occur.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we table the item.
Second.
Motion from Counselor Stone, second from Counselor Walker to table Order 97-1016217 to the November 6th meeting. Those in favor of the tabling motion, show of hands. Those opposed? Those abstaining? Carries 4-1. Item 9.
Mr. Mayor, I move the council adopts Order 98-1016217. Let's see. Approving the renewal of the auto graveyard junkyard permit for Don's No Preference Towing, doing business as Morse Auto Parts and Sales, located at 940 Washington Street North.
Second.
A motion from Counselor Burns and a second from Counselor Walker. Is there any public comment on this order?
My name is Don St. Germain, owner of Morris Auto Parts, Don's No Preference Towing, as you all know. I had a proposal I presented to you guys at the last meeting, but it was not on the agenda, so it's here tonight. I've done what I said I was gonna do, and I believe that it's been inspected by an alderman and some others. I was not present to be there at the time, so sorry about that. The choice I'll give you people right now, if you want, is what color do you want the new secured fence, whatever you want to call it, painted? Maroon to match the building, or green so it looks like greenery? That's up to you guys. Paint's cheap, I can buy you the color.
Make it easy. Green. Green's pretty.
Any other comments or anything people would like to know, let me know.
It looks great. It's a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any council debate on this item?
I would ask if staff has anything additional to add subsequent to the last meeting that we discussed this matter.
Mr. Chairman?
It's been inspected 3 times since the last time we met, and to the progression of it, and it's currently in compliance with state standards.
Thank you.
Further council debate? Councilor Pross.
I think it's terribly sad that the business owner would be so flippant with our council over the many meetings that we've had over this topic. I don't think it's too much to ask that you comply with the requirements of doing business in our community, the requirements of doing business in our state. I believe that the business owner in this particular circumstance has acted as a victim in his presentation in front of our council. I object to it, considering his close proximity to a very important natural resource that exists in our community, that being the Little Androscoggin River. And I know that we already adopted provisional or conditional granting of his license, so perhaps my words are hollow and mean nothing, but to me, I have not appreciated the whole entire process at this point. I'm glad, I guess, that we're at an end stage at the game, but I could not let this go without passing up on the opportunity to voice my opposition to the business being so proximately located to a vital waterway in our community that's important for recreational and environmental reasons, but then also to see the licensee's attitude and approach to the licensing process in our community, which I've found objectionable from the beginning. So I thank our staff for working diligently to make sure that he has complied with state law requirements, but I would humbly ask that the licensee in the future do a little bit of a better job in his approach to maintaining his property in accordance with the standards of the law.
Any other council debate? Councilor Lee.
I'd echo that to some degree to say that contrary to the licensee's perceived opinion from his presentations here, the council as well as staff have been tremendously accommodating of him, and I hope that he's far more compliant next year.
I will ask the council for a vote on order 98 by a show of hands. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carries 7-0. Thank you, council. We are on to reports. Few things I'll walk through to update the council. I had mentioned at the last meeting, we had the annual walk and bike to school day, and I had a chance to join all the students from Walton School. Our Principal Davis does a phenomenal job having all the students bused to Raymond Park in New Auburn for students to walk. It was a great event. I had the opportunity to attend a meeting at the Chamber of Commerce that I worked with Becky Conrad to pull together that included the University of Maine and some of their research arm, folks from the Maine Technology Institute, Museum LA, some developers, folks from Central Maine Community College and others to look at the opportunity in Lewiston, Auburn for what they call in economic development terms a cluster, where certain types of industries have a strong presence. Both the numbers of firms and employees, and in this particular case, it was looking around the textiles and shoe manufacturing businesses. Really a preliminary conversation around opportunities, not only to tie the heritage work around those industries, but how to support existing businesses in our region that are strong there, and how to link it up with the research and development happening at Orono. So it was a really good first conversation. As folks know, everything from LL Bean and Rancourt and Quaddy in Lewiston to Globe here in Auburn and Strainwright and Auburn Manufacturing, there is a very strong presence in this region, and our ability to look at how we can assert ourselves as a hub in particular in southern Maine for these firms. Androscoggin County has a very large share of employment in this area, and what was interesting as we pulled some of the data, not only do we have a larger employment base in shoe and textile manufacturing than Cumberland County, Greater Portland, our compensation for those jobs are also higher here, which I think is a testament to the value added of our employees. So I think there'll be more to come on that. and the potential role the chamber may play in pulling the private sector together. So there'll be more to come, I think, as the months go on. It'll be after my tenure has lapsed, but I think the conversation's been kicked off, and I think Becky's doing a great job at the chamber around that. We had the Dempsey Challenge recently here in town. My last chance to stand next to McDreamy, shake his hand, and be envied by everyone in Greater Lewiston, Auburn. It's always fun to go there with Bob McDonald and see a huge crowd of people, knowing that they really don't care what we have to say. But it's a phenomenal event. I'm always so proud to see companies come out in support of what happens at the Dempsey Center to raise money, families who have stories to tell. Just a really great community event, and it's a weekend where a lot of folks from away are in Lewiston, Auburn, and despite often our inability to see how amazing our riverfront is and our parks and our neighborhoods, our restaurants, our pubs, the folks from away are always blown away by what we have here in the community. So always a positive reminder. Was able to join some city staff at Auburn Manufacturing. Kathy Leonard, who's the CEO, was given a statewide award for manufacturing excellence for her work with high-tech textiles, fire-resistant textiles. Was speaking with a new representative from the SBA who was up in Auburn and for the first time traveled through our industrial park on her way to Auburn Manufacturing and commented what a diverse industrial base we have, and that she was unaware that those industrial parks existed. And I told her it's called good zoning. What residents often don't know what we have for an industrial base here, in part because staff have been very diligent to make sure residential uses don't go where you have heavy industry. But tucked off of Kitty Hawk Ave and Hotel Road are some great employers, and Kathy is definitely a shining example of business leadership that's risen out of this community. Safe Voices, I know that the chief has been active with. I did not see him at the event a couple weeks ago, but I know the kickoff for their 40th anniversary year was hosted here by the chief and the chief from Lewiston. And obviously we departed to go to their vigil at the last meeting, but they had their 40th anniversary awards night, and some really compelling stories that this community is fortunate to have groups like Safe Voices and their staff committed to that work. And last but not least, so you don't think this is a filibuster when I only have a few meetings left, a little promotion for the arena. This Wednesday is the first home game for Central Maine Community College, and they are taking on the Black Bears from the University of Maine. So it's the club team from the University of Maine. It's not their Division I team. So anyone showing up thinking they're going to see Red Gendron out there throwing his clipboard on the ice won't see that. But it's great for the CM team. I know they have a pretty rowdy fan section. So if you haven't had a chance to watch a CM game, I think it'd be worth making some time to stop up to Norway Savings Bank Arena. And with that, I will look to my extreme right for Councilor Young.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also was at the Dempsey Challenge. I saw Councilor Titus there. I know Councilor Walker was someplace because he shared a photo at a water stop, which I added to my report. And I sent the city clerk a link a little bit late, hopefully to have it included as my written report. I also, we took video and photos of the finish. A young man said later on, could you tell me what my time in the 10K was? And it's a question that's often asked because they give you a chip they put on your bib so they can announce you. But if you know the time you started, all the photos in the properties on Flickr will tell you the time you come across the finish line. So you have to do the math. And you can come up with because we took video cuts as well as stills, and the scenery was really great with the backdrop of the river in the back. I guess it's the second year they've done it that way. They should have done it from day one, and then on the next day, I have the privilege of having the cyclists come right by in front of my house. So I took a lot of pictures of them too as well. And for about 2 hours, a steady stream of them. one was interesting, that one particular bike only had one wheel, and I guess it's a unicycle or something, and she was going up and down those hills with no brakes and I guess no handlebars, but she does it every year. And there was one lady that I asked, how far are you going? And she says, I'm from Italy. And that's her only reply. So I guess it was an international type of thing. And then Councilman Walker and I'll add this to my report a little bit later, I didn't get the link in. We was at a rededication ceremony to a Civil War veteran who was from Danville. His name was Moses C. Hanscom, and evidently Councilman Walker could probably get some competition out there. And I will add that link to City Clerk too as well. The photos and the video are respectively on Flickr and YouTube. And I guess that's the end of my report.
Councilor Pross.
A few things here. Want to first of all say congratulations to Lost Valley on what seemed to be a great weekend out there. They had an event on Saturday geared toward adults that included a Franken-mile run, a single-mile run, and then Family Day on Sunday that included sack races, elements, cheerleading squad came out and did a presentation. They had chairlift rides going up to the top of the mountain at Lost Valley with hay rides going out through Wallingford. So it seemed like a nice collaboration out there in Ward 1 between Wallingford's and Lost Valley. Really, the Shannemans out there as owners really taking the initiative to put something on here in the middle of October. It kind of made me think about our vote a few weeks ago to adopt some changes to our ag zone around planned unit development, and I really hope the best for the Shannemans and their investment out there, and I think this weekend was a piece of success for them. So if you got a chance to go out there, I hope you had a chance to enjoy it. Wanted to also let the City Council know that the City of Lewiston City Council had approved funding for the history trail on their side of the river and the river walk, and that's something that we workshopped a few weeks ago. That still has to go to a finance committee to approve the RFP that's going to go to the subcontractor that's actually going to approve the design, but the City Council was aboard and making an appropriation to fund their side of the river on that project that Museum LA, the Land Trust, and some others have been involved in. And Grow LA wanted to just let my fellow city councilors know that that happened on the Lewiston side of the river, and that will be coming before us. I'm not sure exactly when, but before too long, maybe our next meeting, that'll be coming up on November 6th. I guess that's it. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just really 3 transportation-related comments tonight. You, Mr. Mayor, and I sit on the passenger rail expansion study. It's probably the world's slowest study. Hopefully that's going to pick up in speed. We've had very few meetings, and we've been under discussion for quite a while. At the last report, the consulting firm was trying to, or the NEPRA and the MDOT was trying to put together a contract with the consulting firm VHB. I'm very impressed with VHB. I think they're going to do a good job, and I'm very happy that one of the things they're going to do is work very hard to determine demand for the service. They're just not proceeding and laying rail. They're trying to figure out who's going to use this thing and will it be viable. Second item is, pardon me?
Just to add one thing to
that.
Yeah,
go ahead.
The last meeting we had where we were reviewing not only the scope of work, but the timeline for the scope, numbers of public meetings and the like. I believe the draft timeline had a fall kickoff, so I think that it's my expectation that there's still a plan to have a public meeting here in Lewis and Auburn before this fall ends.
I did hear this week that Sue Moreau, the MDOT representative on the project, senior MDOT representative, retired. Something that is many miles away from here, but something, certainly a facility of the Turnpike that many people use, the York Toll Plaza. As you know, we've been trying to move that for a while, and we have successfully procured permits from the Army Corps of Engineers and the DEP to move that project forward. We're supposed to find out today, and I don't know whether or not the town of York was going to appeal the case. And if that appeal happens, it's going to add a considerable amount of time to the project. So, and it's becoming a critical item for us because the equipment that we use at the toll plazas is getting old. And we're now cannibalizing other toll plazas to make York work. So got my fingers crossed that the town does not intervene, does not appeal the case.
What year were the tolls supposed to come out completely?
Yeah, well, that's my favorite jab that I take. That we were supposed to have a tollless turnpike, but the reality is that a lot of people don't know is that the Maine Turnpike Authority went twice to two separate governors, slid the keys across the table and said, "It's yours," and the keys came sliding back from the governors. So they didn't want the turnpike. So, you know, that's the true story of the tollless turnpike. And we do get $135 million a year worth of tolls to help run the thing. The third item is intercity bus service. I don't know how they're doing. It's a private enterprise that's running it. I did go by the station the other day, and parking lot looked pretty full, and there were 2 buses out in front of the station. So there was some activity out there. So hopefully that's going well, and hopefully we're going to be able to get some information as to how that service is working. So that's my transportation-oriented report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a little bit of transportation-related stuff too, but I'll get to it in a minute. Yeah, I did attend the Dempsey Challenge, and it was phenomenal to see the people there, and it seems to be getting bigger every year. It seems 20 years ago I hardly knew anybody that was touched by cancer, and now it's hard-pressed to find somebody who hasn't been touched by cancer. So I hope that continues on and on and on. I did want to talk about the Budget Committee with Androscoggin County. We have one more meeting left, and again, I want to thank Bob Savigny for stepping forward and becoming the citizen part of Ward District 5. We are making some progress. We have been able to trim some budgets, which is a good thing. Whether it'll hold or not, we won't know. One of the interesting things that happened at the last meeting was Western Maine Transportation again came to make a proposal that the county fund a bus service for outlying communities. And a number of the trips to all the communities, Turner and Livermore, Minot, other outside areas, Sabatis. And of course, at the time, we looked at it, and no other communities had been willing to step forward and do anything to add to that. So we did, again, turn down their request. But with the caveat that maybe this coming year that they would go to all the communities and find out if there was any interest in wanting to contribute to that effort. Because obviously, there's a transportation need, but we felt that the county should not be the one that funds that. So they're going to be around all the different communities, including ours, to make a presentation to see if we'd be willing to help contribute to bus service outside of the Lewiston and Auburn area.
So Lewis and Auburn fund over 50%.
Well,
of the county budget.
we had that discussion, and that was, yeah.
Let me finish this train of thought, which means we hold a majority of the votes on the county commission and the budget committee. If there's truly interest in an Androscoggin County transit system, then perhaps Lewiston and Auburn ought to look at moving the Lewiston and Auburn Transit Committee activities to be funded at the county level and transfer a share of that cost to all regional taxpayers in Androscoggin County. That would be a more logical approach and next step than to have us fund a system for the rural towns and take 51% of the bill. Why not look at a system where we move everything to the county level?
Absolutely true. That was the kind of discussion that was going on about different ways that it should happen, and being Lewiston Auburn pays 50% of the county bill, we wanted to see what was going to happen with that. So that's something that's going to move forward. Next week, we will be talking about the Sheriff's Department, Support of Prisoners, Communication Department, and it should be very interesting. It will be the last meeting of the Budget Committee, and then we have a public hearing thereafter. If everything goes well, it'll be approved at that point. So. And also, this coming week, I'll have the Sewer District Trustees meeting on Tuesday and the Waters Trustees on Wednesday. So we probably have more to report at the next one on that part of it. So I guess that's all.
There will be a mayoral debate at Central Maine Community College on October 18th at 6 p.m. It will be live streamed on the Sun Journal and available, I believe, the next day on Great Falls TV. I'd encourage everybody to come or watch that if they can. I'm unaware if there's going to be a city council school committee member forum as there usually is. I haven't heard that there's going to be one, and that's disappointing, and if there's an organization that'd be willing to host something like that, I'd encourage them to step forward and do so, because I think there's nothing more valuable than residents being able to hear from their potential elected officials.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask Mr. Titus, Councilor Titus, to, in his meeting with the Water District, find out how many miles of pipe they have laid in the ground so far. We enlarged that budget by quite a bit. Taxpayers have been hit, and they guaranteed that we're going to lay 1.5 miles of pipe for that cost. So I'd like to know how close they are to that, especially when it comes to the end of the year.
Absolutely.
Please.
That is something I'm watching. I have a new system of tracking capital expenditures and what goes into that, so that hopefully we can be watching that a little more closely.
Thank you. I know I've been there and listened to you a couple of times. Thank you. October 26th, we have a neighborhood watch meeting at the 6th Street Congregational Church. I have asked Lieutenant Harrington to please ask the sheriff of the Sheriff Department if he would like to attend that night. I'm hoping he doesn't forget, and I'm hoping the Sheriff Sampson shows up. People would like to hear some different voices at these meetings. So 6:30 at the 6th Street Congregational Church, October 26th. Normally, we have a United New Auburn Association meeting the last Tuesday of the month. That will be canceled because it's Halloween night, and we don't want the parents at a meeting. We want the kids out doing their trick-or-treating. United New Auburn Association on the 28th is going to do its own Halloween trick-or-treating during the day. That is a Saturday. It will be at 3rd Street and Mill Street that you will come and get your bag and play games and do whatever else and collect your candy. And we're looking for volunteers to help us to cross these streets in the New Auburn area. I'd like you there around 12 o'clock noon. We have vests. We'd like to talk about the route, show you the maps, but there'll be plenty of kids to cross across the main drags, and the chief and other police officers will be coming and going that day and all working with us to make sure things will be safe. So please come if you can. It starts at 1 o'clock on the 28th, gets done at 3 o'clock, so please show up. Don't forget, November 7th, it's a big day at the ballot box. Come and vote. Remember, we've got a big vote coming up for the two cities here. Either you want to merge or you do not want to merge. So please show up November 7th. Remember, absentee ballots are here at City Hall. You can come in during the working hours and you can vote. So please, and if you haven't registered, please come to City Hall and register. If you're new in the community, please come as well and sign up to be a voter in the big city of Auburn or in the city of Lewiston. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The appointment committee met today. We fielded applicants for the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Board of Assessment Review, and the Conservation Commission. Had some really great applicants, as we always do, but we still have plenty of vacancies available across all different parts of city government for intrepid volunteers who are looking to be part of the inner workings of the city of Auburn. I would encourage folks who are interested, as always, to check out the City of Auburn website for any open vacancies for our agencies, boards, and commissions. We are always looking for more people to get involved, but I do believe this was the final meeting of the appointment committee for this term, so I wish the next appointment committee good luck, and I would thank my fellow committee members for all the hard work that they've done, looking through the applications and making, really doing the due diligence to make sure that these volunteer boards have the right folks on them to do the important work that they do. Councilor Walker stole my thunder. I was going to mention that absentee ballots are available. If you are not registered, you can do so anytime between now and Election Day, so don't let that stop you. If you haven't yet registered, there's plenty of time to do so, but it's very easy to come in, get a ballot, and make sure that your voice is heard. There's a lot of important local and state questions on the ballot, as well as our local elections for our local offices here. So please make sure that you vote between now and November 7th. Finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that this Friday, the undefeated Red Eddies will be playing the number 3 seeded Lewiston Blue Devils for our Battle of the Bridge. This year it's being held in the city of Lewiston at the Bates football field. It's this Friday at 7 o'clock. Should be a great game. Local sports historians are saying this is the first time the Red Eddies have been 7-0 since my father played in 1977, I believe, with Doc Hersom as our coach. And they did win a state championship that year. So this is really a an exciting moment for our Red Eddies football team, and should be a packed field, packed stadium over there in Lewiston. So I would encourage folks to go over there and show their support for our Red Eddies football team.
Before I turn it over to our Assistant City Manager, just a follow-up to Councilor Burns' comments about the football game. It is a whiteout for EL fans, so if you're going to go to the game, wear as much white as you can. And Lewiston High School is sponsoring a tailgate. It's a chem-free tailgate. It's a tailgate at the Lewiston Middle School parking lot. So if anyone in the audience, counselors, staff, or folks watching want to come by, I plan to be there to cheer on our team and make sure we have an Auburn presence there for the tailgate. And I've reached out to Dick Leeson's radio station. They do the game broadcasts to see if they might have interest in coming by the tailgate lot before. So if you want to have a hot dog or a hamburger, come see the mayor. Madam Manager.
Good evening. I actually was reflecting on today's date, and tomorrow would mark actually 3 months since I've been here. So I just wanted to start the manager's report. Peter's on vacation, with the fact that I'm really, really impressed of the work staff, the department directors, their respective staffs, and the work and the dedication they have to serving this community. And before I go through some of the events that are upcoming, and I also want to appreciate the level of involvement that the city councilors actually have in this community, whether they're serving on boards, going to board meetings, committee meetings, but most importantly, being out in community and being visible. It's very refreshing to hear at the city council meetings your involvement and your presence in the community. So thank you. I'd like to start with a response that the Department of Economic and Community Development made earlier this month in response to the waste management issues with emptying of dumpsters prior to 7 a.m. Just a note that a letter was served at the beginning of the year, but a reminder one was just sent out in light of some recent complaints in some of the neighborhoods. So that has gone out. In addition, part of what I'm doing is I'm also meeting with department directors, and I met today with Mamie at the Auburn Public Library, and I just want to bring to your attention, they have an exhibit which is actually quite moving. It's small, but it's moving. It's called Marking Time, A Voyage to Vietnam. It talks about the stories of young American soldiers and Marines who actually served in Vietnam, and they basically graffitied or marked up their
troop ship cots. And so you actually see some really nice art and some just writings about their service. So if you have an opportunity to get to the library, it's a great exhibit to check into. The Auburn Fire Department is hosting a free open house to teach fire safety prevention skills, and that's on Saturday, October 21st, from noon to 4 at Central Station. Plenty of food, pizza, so enjoy. Norway Savings Bank Arena is hosting hockey night on Thursday, October 26th, from 6 to 8 at the arena. There'll be live jazz, food, drinks, and a silent auction, all to benefit the Gladiators Junior Hockey Program. Auburn Recreation Department is hosting again their annual Fright Festival on Friday, October 27th from 6 to 8 at Hasty, and it's for kids ages pre-K to 6th grade. And last but not least, and I know that we haven't made it through Thanksgiving, we haven't even made it through Halloween, but we are looking for the perfect tree to be able to be installed in Festival Plaza. So if you want your tree, and if you think you can make the cut, as Liz Allen, exactly, the winning tree will be removed and transported at no cost to you. So if you know of anybody or a beautiful tree in your neighbor's yard, you might want to volunteer a few folks. But visit the city's website to enter your tree and tell us why you would like your tree to be cut and moved to the plaza.
To clarify, we should probably not recommend our neighbor's tree unless we have our neighbor's consent to do so.
That would be a good idea. But it might be in your way.
And we
So-
don't want a maple tree either.
So the winning tree will be illuminated on Saturday, November 25th. So thank you.
Thank you, Denise. We are at the second open session of the evening. I'll open the floor. Okay, I will close the floor. The council has 2 executive sessions that they were not able to attend to earlier in the workshop. None of those require action. After the completion of the second, we will return for adjournment. And with that, I will look for a motion from the council for item E, as listed under the workshop, for an executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss an economic development matter pursuant to Title I MRSA 4056 sub C.
Second.
Motion from Councilor Pross, second from Councilor Burns. Those in favor, show of hands. Those opposed, carries 7-0.